Hello and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. Tonight I have a special guest here with us, Michael Lee Hill. So Michael has a very interesting background, and I guess I'll just let him go over this with us. So we'll get into it here. But I connect with Michael because I met him at some conferences before, and he makes this really cool Anunnaki technology, which I guess he channeled, and he has an orb experience with crop circles like myself, and also he's also a musician, speaks a lot on 432 Earth frequency. So I'm gonna pull Mike in the studio and let him share his story with you guys. So make sure you also in the chat I posted the link to his art and my tip jar, so if you want to help fund the studio. Also, there's a few more shaman spears left on my latest Pantheon collection, so make sure you go check that out at shamanspears.com. Help me get my studio together. So time to bring in Michael. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to have you in here. I definitely have a lot I can connect with you on for this show today. The 432 Hertz, we both talk a lot about that. You mentioned before the show an orb experience you had, and I've also, my craziest UFO experience was with an orb as well. So I'm excited to get into that. But first, as a little introduction here, so you were on a show called UFO Hunters on the History Channel, where you were tested. They apparently your bloodline is very interesting, and they tested your blood, not just your blood type, but something along those lines. So can you get into that as a little introduction for us all?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was contacted by the History Channel because they're doing a show on Skywatchers, but that ended up turning into a full episode. I was originally supposed to have like 5 minutes because I was filming these orbs over Lake Erie. Hang on for 1 sec. So some of my footage went viral, and that brought the History Channel to my door, but they had interviewed another contactee. His name was Terrell Copeland, and he was a Marine, and they found out he had a very rare blood anomaly that none of the best military or civilian doctors could figure out. So the History Channel thought, wow, isn't it weird that these two guys, they've never met, but they have the same UFOs, these orbs of light. It's cool you've seen them, by the way. That we had both filmed the same objects, but we both had the same story of contact and how it dealt with military secret factions. We can get into that. But they thought, well, if this guy has this weird blood anomaly, being Terrell, the Marine, and him and Michael have had all these similar experiences, wouldn't it be weird if I ended up with that same weird blood anomaly? So without telling me, because I am a baby and I don't like needles, they asked me if I would go
the same way.
Yeah, if they would have told me, I was like, no, I don't think so. But they just said, would you be willing to do an update to your story? And I didn't know what was happening, but when I got there, they had a Harvard professor. His name is David Systrom, and he ended up doing both of our blood work, the Marine and myself. And sure enough, I had the exact same blood anomaly as he had. And what it is an enzyme called creatine kinase. And creatine kinase is released into the bloodstream to facilitate healing. Usually if you've had a ripped muscle or you've had a heart attack, the normal amounts of creatine kinase in the blood is 25 parts per liter of blood. But what they found in mine and Terrell's was we were both almost identical, around 2,100 versus 25. When what I found out is the more creatine kinase that's in your bloodstream equates to how much chi or prana or life force you're holding at a cellular level. So you can imagine the more creatine kinase in the blood, the more chi, the more oxygen. Yeah, so we can get into this, but I was brought into the NSA remote viewers slash reverse engineering division, and they said they had 12 members in that 200 member team group that had my same bloodline. They said my levels of 2100 would put me in about the middle, just to give you a comparison. They
Did
said they
you work
got,
with them? You're saying you worked with them, or they
yeah,
just?
they
Oh
brought me
wow.
into the fold. The head of the remote viewers reverse engineering division, because they knew my contact with the Anunnaki and that I'm a counterpart of Inky on this planet, or Ea. But we can get into this. Both of those are not names, they're titles. My name's Michael, so that worked out good.
Yeah, that was a question I also wanted to ask you was, like if you had any comments about, I know in a presentation I saw, I believe it was Stargate to the Cosmos with you, you were talking about your Inky connection, and I can definitely feel that in you. So I could sense that in you. And so I think that's very interesting. Actually, and also my uncle's a remote viewer, and I actually just did a little work with that with a friend recently. He showed me kind of how to do it, and I just tested it out like one time, or actually twice. And the first time he had an idea of the Washington Monument. And what I drew was like a sword sticking up out of a lake.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after, so he knew of this like CIA or this website where the CIA, they put all the number codes in, and you can just click any number code and, do the whole process, and then after you can see what it was. And I randomly chose one out of like hundreds, and the one I chose, I saw all this like, I saw like a pyramid and or like a mountain, and I saw like, city, like burning like cities, and just these guys with these weird hats. And I don't know, that's just what I was writing down, and I was just writing down all this interesting stuff, and then it ended up being pyramids in China. So it was very interesting. I really enjoyed the process. So that's really cool.
It's very real. And, we all do it. We don't even realize it. But what the NSA found is even if you send someone good energy into the next room, they had the technology to see if any light packets or any kind of energy entered the room. And sure enough, it does. And we're all gifted with this. We're not these bodies alone. You know what I mean? Our energy goes out into everything, and you just got to tune in. And obviously, you're tuning in. It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I'm interested to know, do you have any, can you share any stories of like what you've remote viewed? I mean, have you remote viewed the Anunnaki? And like, can you talk about your connections with what
Yeah.
you've experienced with that?
What happened was I didn't learn remote viewing from them. I had already taught myself. And I taught myself by being guided to a bed of spiritual information called the Seth material. And these books, are you familiar?
The I'm sorry, what was it? The Seth
The
material?
Seth books, they're by Jane Roberts.
I
Highly,
don't know those.
yeah, highly recommended. You'll see right when you open the book, there's a quote by Deepak Chopra saying, if you want to study consciousness, there's no other better place to start. And a lot of other famous people studied the Seth material, and especially quantum physicists now, because what they're finding is the concepts are there in the Seth material. The words are different, but the Seth material explains the physics of light and sound and how it creates physical reality, and how consciousness is truly behind the steering wheel. Think about what you're thinking about, kind of thing. But so the work I did with them was they brought me in because they know of my hybrid bloodline, and they formed a 7-member team, and including the head of what's known to the public as the ACIO, Alien Contact Interface Organization, which is a secretive division of the NSA. And they have a more secretive group called the Labyrinth Group, where the actual feet on the ground in underground bases and whatnot, where there's extraterrestrials involved in technology transfer programs. But the head of both of these divisions, his name is A.R. Borden. And he became like a father figure to me. What's really weird is Bill Burns in that History Channel show, the episode was Alien Contact. And you got to know, this was well before being brought in by the NSA. Bill Burns on that show said, I think you're being contacted by a secret faction of the government, and they're going to give you a course of study to understand your contact. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But to get to the crux of it all, in 2012, A.R. Borden created a 7-member team, and specifically it was to take the energy out of Hurricane Sandy, which was coming into the New York area. And then on the other side of the United States was Earthquake Charlotte, which made a 20-foot tsunami. And that tsunami was heading towards Hawaii. And simultaneously, we were already working with the Anunnaki, asking for their help in 2012 because everything was looking like a doom and gloom transit of Nibiru in 2012. So pretty much you just can't go to them and ask for help. You need to suss up to the table. And first of all, give your own solution, which obviously, from what I understand, they looked at us like we're little children, like trying to take a hold of the wheel. They're like, oh, how cute, you know? But what they did ended up using monoliths, which are on all of the ley line nodal points of all the planets. So don't think I'm not noticing these monoliths showing up.
Wait, what? They're using monoliths before all this recently? Where?
Yeah, look into Buzz Aldrin. He said, wait till people find out there's a monolith on the moon of Mars. And
I heard about that.
Yeah, he said people are going to ask, well, who put it there? He said God put it there. But you know what, though, man? The Anunnaki do not look at themselves as gods. Matter of fact, there was a higher dimensional being who was from the Pleiadians, and his name was Galzu. And every time Galzu showed up, you know, Anu, myself, and Enlil, we sat our asses down and listened to his counsel. So that shows you the Anunnaki know that there's higher intelligences on the totem pole. But I think I spun out there. What were we talking about? Oh, the NSA. It's interesting because we each had a partner in that team. And at first, they made sure we had what they called a handshake. And that was to be able to detect each other's energetic signature on a non-physical platform. We used a Roman Colosseum that would meet at, astrally. And I would have to meet and be able to see where my partner was. And once they got a handshake there, they said, okay, now we're going to see if you have a handshake with your counterpart on the incoming kingdom planet. And once that was determined, what they said was, like, to take the power out of Hurricane Sandy, I have tasking instructions. If any of your listeners want to look at any of the stuff I'm talking about, you can go to Team Inky. It's a Facebook group I started. And I'm actually sharing all the ebooks and learning material from this secret faction. And they gave us all tasking instructions that had all the most current data of Hurricane Sandy and its trajectory and strength and whatnot from all the satellites. And they said, we know you're not weathermen, but we're going to give you this. All you need to do is put your eyes on these pages, and your counterpart will be looking through your eyes. They'll know what to do with this data. All you got to do is put your eyes on it. So that was pretty strange. But when those storms totally had all of the energy removed out of them, in 2012, but that actually ended up causing our team leader, which became a father figure to me, they took him out. And specifically, we're talking about the transhumanists and the people behind the Georgia Guidestones. They believe that somehow they're more special than us and we're just cattle, we're goyim. And they're going to go down into their underground bunkers. And when all the commotion ceased on the surface, they would rise up and have their little utopia without us. And we threw a big monkey wrench, you know. But it causes death, as I said, and that's really sad. But that really, you know, all along, this has not been an easy journey.
How do the Anunnaki feel about the transhumanist people you were just talking about?
Well, there's two different factions because they're both helping us evolve. But if you need a dark lesson, there is a faction of the Anunnaki up until very recently, because we're now in the age of Aquarius. So everything's different. The way that they related to mankind was the age of Pisces. And we have now entered the age of Aquarius, which was 2016, not 2012. So we're in a different time now. But up until then, there was two camps. And one camp, I call them Team Bad Cop. Their spiritual job was to make sure no one that gave their energy away to illusionary outside sources got through the gate, you know? So their job is to dangle dark carrots. And if they can get you a bite, then they get to go back to the king and go, hey, see, I told you, they always give their energy away and they always abuse their power over others and themselves and this planet, and they overuse. But then there's always been a Team Good Cop, or the Seven Lords of Light, or many different names of this council. But they are going to vet a human to see what. So if Team Bad Cop is, I was told by Inlo that it's all self-inflicted suffering through one's own free will. If you don't allow it, it can't happen in your reality. But if it's self-inflicted suffering through one's own free will for the dark, the light is to see what kind of love and compassion to any suffering that comes your way. So that's a very interesting thing to think about in today's world, is how are we handling suffering that comes our way? Are we building walls? Or are we helping each other? But that's the spiritual function of the council, that's in a nutshell what they were doing here. But that ended with the Anunnaki told me the second we entered the age of Aquarius, that time of accelerating human conscious evolution by making us experience our own mental energy in an accelerated fashion, which started 27,000 years ago, that was done and over. And either we would have learned what we needed to learn, or we would get a do-over. Since we're talking right now, I really do believe, I think it was close, but here we are.
We're doing the do-over now, you're saying?
I think we've been doing a do-over over and over and over and over. I think we've actually done it now. Matter of fact, I've heard for the first time in this Kali Yuga, in this time, that mankind is going to go from human caterpillar to human butterfly. And none of us has ever experienced this phase of evolution that we're going through right now. We just need to purge the fear and doubt and nonsense out of all of our belief systems, personally and in mass.
Oh, I am feeling that so much lately. That's something that's been coming up in a lot of my shows, because actually the unofficial theme of this show has been the human consciousness shift. It's just something I've always been very interested in. And I feel like right now it's like all the work you're doing within yourself is reflected into the collective. So it really comes down to every individual person. It's like everyone's like it's almost like it's like everyone like kind of sees things is thinking right now like there's supposed to be some external thing that's going to happen, but it's all internal right now. It's like all the work we're all individually doing is all going to be reflected into the collective, and that's what's really most important right now. It's like everyone's like, oh, but what's going on in the world, and but it's like, no, it's not about that. That's not, we can't change things from the outside. We have to change from the inside right now. That's what's important.
You're very wise. It all has to start within the individual, and then it spreads to the outside world. But that's one thing. Interestingly enough, A.R. Borden, he told me not everyone's mental energy affects the mass reality. That, truly, this gets a little weird, but the first thought forms that enter your head, they're not yours. They're from the mass consciousness. And it's about the first 15 seconds. And it's usually, oh, I'm getting screwed again. Why is this happening again?
I actually read... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I actually read somewhere one time, I was reading this book, The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth, and it kind of goes through all the ideas that like ancient mystery schools, like how they thought and everything. And one of them, at the beginning, it was saying that the ancient people used to think as thoughts peopling, not people thinking. So instead of people thinking, they thought it as thoughts peopling. And I think that's so interesting because I feel like when you're in a group of people, it's almost like, I notice this all the time. It's like, I feel like a lot of people start kind of thinking the same thing at once. And it's like, okay, something like came through to affect that. And you can definitely sense that more if you're, in like plant medicine type experiences, I've noticed.
Yeah, you can soak it right in, can't you? What I've found is, so if the first 15 seconds come from the mass consciousness, and more than likely it's going to be fear-based, because unfortunately most of the mass consciousness on this planet is at that vibratory level. But, once I started to learn thoughts create reality, well, belief, which is thoughts, feelings, and emotions, create your physical reality. All of a sudden I realized, well, why is my internal dialogue still negative? Because I couldn't stop it. I would always, what's that saying? Like assuming the worst. And so I went to the big woman upstairs and I said, am I just doomed to have to experience my own stupid thought forms? And all of a sudden I was given this download of a record player that kind of had the old horn on it, the needle that would drop on it. And it said it's just a recording. And I got it at that point. It was out of the unlimited parallel realities from light to dark. There's something you have a fear stamp on. It might be not the worst thing you could possibly think of, but this is something that happened to you already. And you got a fear stamp on it. That's what's going to be reported back in your head. And this is happening again. But if you understand it's just a recording, you can go, well, thank you for showing me what I got a fear stamp on. Now what else is available? That severs your link to the mass consciousness, and now you can become a co-creator instead of a reactor. And it's not easy because we're all programmed to accept those first thought forms. I found out Bruce Lee had the exact same understanding, that when he would have a feeling of doubt or fear, he would write it down on a piece of paper and then burn it, give it back to the universe. Okay, what else is available? Yeah, so however we can do it, we each need to find a way to say, oh, thank you, what else is available? Because don't fight that thought. That never works. Don't go out after anything in life with the arrow. It's about the olive branch. We can get into that because that's Native American Indian wisdom. Because then you can start bringing in other realities on timelines. And the more you become a co-creator, it's like A.R. Borden called it bootstrap evolution, because it's truly, if you weed out the fear and doubt, you enlighten and increase your own vibratory level. And when that happens, you got more juice to manifest. And they said one of the biggest things that's been withheld from humanity is, have you ever heard of the 100th monkey?
Yes. I talk about that a lot in the show, actually.
Oh, right on. Well, the book, The 100th Monkey, has it at a 7% threshold. And A.R. Borden told me, he said, one of the biggest guarded secrets is it's only 3%. That once 3% of us is vibrating at a higher level, that's more love than fear, no matter what that, how that thought form is manifesting into reality. It only takes 3% of it, 3% of us, before it'll spread throughout the whole mass consciousness. And when someone else experiences that same kind of energetic signature of trial and tribulation, there'll be a new thought form going, well, you could look at it this way. Doesn't mean they'll accept it, but that voice will be in their own head, in their own mind, just like we're getting communicated to by the mass consciousness. The mass consciousness can be communicated by those of us. But you can imagine, until you break that 3% threshold of the mass consciousness, it's not an easy fight, because every single person that you know will become the warden, because you're part of the first 3%. But I've been told we've cracked it already. So,
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like a lot of people, when they think of the human consciousness shift, they think that what is going to cause the shift is everyone having more knowledge on certain things. But you're saying it's more about a love vibration. So I think that's really interesting. It's like a lot of people I feel like I talk to, they always seem to think it's like, oh, like we all need to know this and that and these things that are happening in the world, which are actually kind of more fear-based topics. So that's interesting you say that.
yeah, and it doesn't take many of us to change everything. I think we're doing it right now.
Definitely.
Oh, that's cool. There's questions coming up.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to ask. Someone, John Cruz here, said, can you ask Michael if he is familiar with Gerald Clark's work and his books? How accurate was Gerald?
Actually, I like Gerald. He's had me on his radio show. We've talked many times. And, oh, wow. Can you hear that when my computer's beeping in?
No, I haven't heard that.
Oh, good. We all, Zachariah Sitchin, Gerald Clark, myself, we're all, it's all going to get translated through the translator. And, he's one of the most accurate that I know of. A matter of fact, the movie he was working on, I was like, dude, that guy looks a little familiar. He's like, you didn't know you were in my movie, did you? So, yeah. But anyhow, I'm a fan of Gerald's. All of us have, some of the things, a lot of people seem to be throwing Inky under the bus. And
the Anunnaki in general, I mean, they all say like, oh, they just came here to make us slaves.
Yeah, that's when you find out, we can get into this, but the Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline, provable now with DNA, and it's the Atlantean bloodline, and I'm right in the middle of revealing this. But they went from Atlantis 10,500 years ago, the last breakup, and they went into the Yucatan and went into Mexico and Coatzacoalcos, taught them pyramid building and the Mayan calendar. And but as I said, an experiment by the Anunnaki to help us be more prepared for this end of this Kali Yuga was making us experience our own mental energy in an accelerated fashion, unbiasedly, light or dark, whatever you put out, you get to experience multiplied and magnified. And it's actually based on the Earth and the Moon phases to its strength. It's like the strength would ebb and flow. And it's interesting because it's backwards of what you would think, that during full moon phases, as you probably know, people go a little crazy and there's more murders and more people going into hospitals and whatnot. The full moon is the highest level of being made to experience your own mental energy in an accelerated fashion. And it's to help us evolve faster, because what happens, people don't know this, but our consciousness is tied to the Earth's electromagnetic fields. And the magnetic field is about the lowest it's ever been. So how this works is, the stronger the magnetic field, the more of a time lag there is between the thought and the manifestation of thought. So 2,000 years ago, you had time to change your mind, because once you thought something, say you went, Fred's an idiot, I hope he gets sick. And then the next day you go, you know what, I totally misunderstood that situation. Fred's actually a really cool guy. Well, whatever your ill will was wouldn't make it there, because you didn't have an energetic handshake. But when the Earth is at the lowest amount of magnetic field energy, which we are right now, the time lag between the thought and the manifestation of thought gets down to almost instant. So you don't have time to change your mind. Whatever you're thinking of is going to manifest into your reality almost instantly. So if you haven't done your spiritual homework, and you have a lot of fear and doubt and nonsense, and you enter a time in the Kali Yuga, in this grand cycle where we're in a timeline that your thoughts are going to manifest instantly, well, that's not a real good combo, So that's why it was so important for a very long time to learn to weed the fear and doubt and nonsense out of your belief system. And by doing that, it's bootstrap evolution. You actually start to, we can get into this. There's actually a science that you start to grow new strands of DNA, but no one can do it for you. You have to do it. You got to, as my beloved says, you got to swim the moat, man. No one gets a free ride. That's one interesting thing. When I met the Anunnaki, I met Team Bad Cop first, and they were in bad cop mode. I mean, there was threats being raised against me and whatnot. But once they used this tool, and they could scan my pineal gland, I could feel it. And I got nothing to hide. I was like, well, have at it, truth serum, cool. And that's when everything changed, because I found out I was in front of Marduk. And once he scanned they can hit your Akashic, and they can see exactly who you are, every life you've ever lived and will live. And that's when everything changed. But the reason I'm telling you this is, they had no idea who I was or who I am within the Anunnaki. And that also means that Team Bad Cop, that they're reflecting back a negative polarity in hopes we will learn what we need to learn. But, Marduk had told me, making sure, I often think of Pink Floyd, where it says, Mother will make sure all your nightmares come true. Mother will make sure nothing dirties you through. That's kind of Marduk's role here, was to make sure nothing dirtied you through, by making sure all your nightmares come true. And it's probably the worst job in all of the cosmos. But so imagine you're part of Team Bad Cop, but no one gets a free ride through this experience, and you get worked on by the machine just like anybody else. It doesn't matter. No one gets preferred treatment.
So when you say, what you're talking about with the DNA strands, what kind of work are you saying? Like, how exactly do you do this kind of work? Is it just, like you said, eliminating fear and doubt within yourself, or is there more to it than that?
It's a great question. It's because thoughts have an electromagnetic reality. There's a waveform attached to mental energy. And what you'll find, like Dr. Emoto showed, when thought forms are not aligned with source energy and evolution, they don't create any geometry. It just looks like mud. If you type or tape the words "I love you," and then he would photograph that. You know who Dr. Emoto is, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So it's proven that thought forms that are love-filled and evolution aligned will create geometry. So thought forms that are fear-based have lower geometry. So imagine in your third eye, DNA, and this is physical. It's made out of very minuscule particles. But then you got a waveform of mental energy. So imagine if you superimpose the waveform of mental energy over the DNA, where the two cross, one is non-physical and one's physical, is where codons will form within the DNA. So when you're in fear and not connected to source, your geometry is limited, which makes less connection points. So once you start to weed the fear out of your own belief system, then you have more connection points. And those connection points will grow more codons, and new strands will start to appear. So that's why he called it bootstrap evolution. That, truly, I think the time of reading books and, like you said, gaining knowledge, it's over. Now you gotta, it's just fear love, man. You know what I've told you? For spirituality, you can reduce it to one sentence. You get what you expect. There is no other main rule. Fear love, and fear wears many masks. People, it's not that simple. It's like, man, fear, it takes on many, many forms. Fear of not keeping up with the Joneses, fear of what other people think of you, fear of being left, fear, and we all, believe me, when you look at behavior and what drives the behavior, it's like we're all sharing a big pool of hopes and dreams and fears and doubts. And we are, so we all have the ability to, once you take one of those fear-based thought forms that has lived in your psyche and you change it and you see your reality change, well, that's a truth that comes from within, no books, no knowledge needed, and then you start to, well, what else is available? And that's where the true learning begins. And it has everything, I believe, too, I found out they can send us packets of information and see how well or fast the download speed is. So I was like, well, what the hell's the package? Because if they can measure it, it's got to have some type of measurable character. I'm losing the words for it.
Signature?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something measurable. And finally, it took me a couple of years, but I finally got the answer. It's synchronicities. They can send you and be the orchestrator of a synchronicity and then gauge if you accept it, process it, the speed of which it's processed. And I think all of us have been spirits constantly trying to communicate. And for the
I definitely notice when it's coming through for me. And then I notice when it's not coming through. I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, it's fun though, because, they gave me a story and I thought it was quite beautiful. They said, imagine that one night you meet Source, you meet the Creator, and she hands you a flower and says this flower is going to symbolize you meeting her, and everything's groovy, everything's cool, we're taken care of, we're loved, and this flower symbolizes it. And then you lose consciousness again, and when you wake up in the morning, you wake up and there's a real rose on your chest. Then what? It's like once you start paying attention to life's synchronicities and coincidences, they will grow until all doubt is removed that something is communicating with you, That's a whole nother chapter then. I was like, well, what the hell is communicating with me?
Something I wanted to bring up earlier, when we were talking about collective consciousness and these things coming up, and this is kind of relating back to it now, I feel like when inventions and when people come up with the idea of like different inventions, like important ones throughout time, it seems like it'll be like 5 people at the same time. It's like like different people all get the downloads at once and they all start acting on it, but it's like the one that brings it forward first. And it like, even with art and things like that, do you feel like, that's kind of the same thing? It's like a collective thing and all these people are kind of getting this download at once?
Absolutely. I think there's like this field and it has information, and you're exactly right. There's many people get inspired with the exact same information. But there seem to be people like Nikola Tesla that could tune in and pull it in and work with it. But I'm sure if he wouldn't have, there was someone waiting in the wings that was getting the same information. So who's putting the information there is another question. You know, some of this I don't claim to know. I did find out, you know, I don't know if this is even related, but everyone kind of has this idea we're living in a reflected holographic reality. Well, what programs the reality? I found out it's us. That a whole spectrum from fear-based people to more love-based people are brought into what's called the Halls of Amenti at certain times of the year. And the Halls of Amenti are in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And so, man, this gets weird, but this ceremony is a 4-day ceremony. And for Native American Indians, they call it a Sundance. But the idea is for the Halls of Amenti during this time period, 13th dimensional beings are no longer 13 floors above you. They're mingling on the same dimensional level at certain points where ley lines cross. And at those points, they intermingle with humanity, and humanity gets both Team Good Cop and Bad Cop are there vetting initiates before the council, and both sides get to dangle light and dark carrots, I guess. But what happens is day 1 is the spring, day 2 programs the summer, and then day 3 is the fall, and day 4 programs the 3 months of winter. And they actually gave me the time because you're entering the Time Lords, you know, that create our physical experience. And they said on day 1, for instance, it's 1 second equals 91.25 seconds of perceived reality. Meaning, if you lose your shit for 1 second on day 1, in your next year, you're going to experience 91.25 seconds of that energetic stamp of whatever that emotion was. So you can imagine if you lose your shit for 5 minutes, what that all flip over into. But it's interesting because day 3 is known as backwards day. And that bothered me a little bit because the Native American Indians actually teach their culture about backwards day by, you know, the children will go up and go, hey, I hope you have a really horrible day. You know, it's a fun thing. Like everyone speaks backwards on that day. And so I'm thinking, this is all new to me. And I know what's happening. As a matter of fact, you know, Chief told me, you know, these dimensional beings, they're here amongst you. And don't be surprised if you hear someone call your name or grab your toe, and both things happened. Matter of fact, synchronicities, sometimes, like you're saying, you know, sometimes we have a few synchronicities, one will happen, and maybe 2 in a day is something, and then maybe a couple days will go and nothing happens, and then you'll experience another synchronicity. Well, during this time, it was like living within the synchronicity. It was just nonstop of synchronistic weird things. And matter of fact, that's when I found out. Because when I met the Anunnaki back in 2008, they told me you were once known as Ea Inki, the water bearer. And boy, that made no sense to me because I didn't know what an Anunnaki was. So I sure as heck didn't know what Ea was. But one of the things that happened, this is years later, that was 2008 when they told me about my name. I'm talking about the Anunnaki. This is 2016 at the Sundance. And they cut down a tree for their ceremony that they use in the Sundance. And when we're getting ready to leave the chopping down of that tree, someone ran up and grabbed me by the shoulder and said, they're having a grandfather meeting and your presence is requested. I thought, what the hell? I don't even have a kid. I'm definitely not a grandfather, you know? So I walked over to where he pointed, and one of the Sundancers, she was on the, what do you call that when you cut down a tree? Like, what's left of the tree as a stool,
A stump?
Yeah, the stump. That's it. So she's sitting there and she points to the woods and she goes, they're in there. You can't miss them. So I'm thinking, what the heck? So I walk into the woods and it wasn't easy to get in there. I had shorts on. I ended up being pretty bloody from thorns and thickets. And I got in there and there's no one there. I'm thinking, am I getting Indian punked? So I made my way out of there and made it back to the Sundance grounds. And this little girl comes up to me and goes, the grandfathers told me to tell you you didn't see them because they were in spirit form. I was like, what? Whoa, how did you know anything about that? She goes, Spirit told me. She hopped away. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? So a couple hours later, one of the grandmothers pulled me aside and she was talking to me. And this other lady went up and talked to her for a few minutes. And when she was done, she said, thank you, grandmother, for giving me your time. Is this your grandson? She goes, no, this is the grandfather. I'm thinking, I'm totally at a loss. I don't know what this means. So a little bit later on, I'm out smoking a joint, and this was frowned upon. And one of the grandmothers pulled up in her minivan, and I thought I was in trouble. Here I am, a grown man, Oh, no. And she asked me if I would go for a ride with her in her minivan. And she says, I want to talk to you about the migration of our bloodline into North America and, becoming the mound builders and finally resting in the Iroquois and the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. She says, but wouldn't it be interesting or useful if I had a map of the United States to show you on? She went, she waved her hand and a freaking map of the United States showed up like a Star Wars red holographic freaking map on the inside of her minivan window on her side. And she looked at me and she said, I know you can see it. I said, yeah, it's right there. There was no not seeing it. And she used that map for the next 15 minutes to show me the migration of the Nephilim bloodline into the North American continent. She said, but I need to talk to you about the dialect of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. And she said, for instance, let's use the word grandfather. I'm like, oh, here we go again, And she said the same word for Lakota, for grandfather in Lakota will end in LA. In Dakota, it'll end in DA. And in Nakota, it'll end in NA. So, for instance, she said the most ancient name for grandfather in our language is Iada for the Dakota. Ia is the name for grandfather. So, people ask me, well, how do you know you're Ia? Like someone went through an unbelievable amount of trouble to even, people don't know Ia means grandfather. Like I said, they told me my real name has been Michael all along. Spirit recognizes me as Rainbow Warrior Eagle. Said the Spirit, if I ever went to Spirit, Michael, they don't know who the hell Michael is. They're like, matter of fact, Chief Blue Star Eagle was part of my naming ceremony. And he said, Spirit recognizes you as a rainbow, which to the Native American Indians, rainbow, Grandmother Morningstar said, Michael, this gets weird. And I'm going to share what she said. You are the rainbow we've been waiting for. And she said that the human chakras are red in the root, the purple in the crown, and all the colors of the rainbow come through each chakra, but only when it's unencumbered and spinning freely. And she said there's actually like a Star of David, a double tetrahedron within each of the chakras. And if they are dirtied with negative thought forms, they won't spin as fast and they don't emit color. And so what Chief Blue Star Eagle told me was only until Spirit deems you rainbow that your prayers will go to source with great enthusiasm, he said. that spirit's smarter than, even if you had 6 of your chakras totally clean and they're glowing, but your root chakra is all dark and you're having problems keeping a roof over your head and abundance, and you're having all these root chakra issues. Well, if all of a sudden spirit went, well, she's got 6 of the 7, not you personally, but most people, if they have 1 or more of those chakras that are not cleaned and balanced, and they give an extra manifestation ability, you're just going to go to what you still have a fear stamp on and crank up the volume, So spirit is smarter than that. And the Tibetan monks have the exact same knowledge. They call it the rainbow body. Even in the, Odin and Loki and Thor, the rainbow bridge. That is what we all need to work on, is becoming rainbow. And I love this idea because it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter anything. And everyone's journey to rainbow is going to be different. Everyone's baggage that they carry with them. But there's a science here that we've been not taught yet. And that is, if you're experiencing trial and tribulation, what chakra is it highlighting, And then through heart math, which part of the NSA was working with heart math and getting their results. Are you familiar with heart math?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's, this NSA team had...
diagram here.
What's that?
Keep talking. I'm going to pull up a diagram here of it to show the
Oh, right on. So heart math, in the very near future, say you start to realize, I'm having problems speaking my truth. It's a throat chakra. And then, to have heart math biofeedback technology where you can see your heart rate, you can see your breathing rate and get a real-time feedback loop and be able to see, all this is coming in the very near future. And it's truly look into the prophecy of the rainbow warriors or the whirling rainbow. That's what the grandmother Morningstar told me. She said, to those of us that have the gift of sight, you have become the whirling rainbow. And I think, anyone can do it. It's just don't be a dick.
What I thought was interesting about heart math, when I first learned about it, they were saying that we have neurons in our heart, and it's like everyone tends to think with their brain because they feel like they think their neurons are only in their brain, but actually we have neurons in our heart.
Yes.
And apparently if you kind of focus on thinking more with your heart, then that actually can help you live longer and, kind of maintain your youth. And
that's what the NSA found is the heart has a much bigger electromagnetic field around it. It goes out about 6 foot. You're in the middle of it. Whereas the brain, it doesn't have that reach. It's about 1 foot. So they started thinking, well, wait a minute, what effect is the heart having? And that's part of this as well. Is people that might know about the wing makers, I highly suggest looking into it. That is a portal into the knowledge that the NSA is getting with the Anunnaki. But we do need to talk about the bloodlines because everyone thinks, like you said, first of all, a lot of people throw the Anunnaki and the Nephilim under the proverbial bus, that they're the ones behind the secret societies and Skull and Bones and all this. But when you find out, and it's not going to be able to be doubted here soon, that the oldest Inky side bloodline on this planet intertwined into the Native American Indians. What does the Native American Indians have to do with Freemasons? And nothing is the answer. And as a matter of fact, the Native American Indians have been trampled under the machinery of this 80 to 100 million genocide of the Native American Indians. And this is such a weird time for me to be watching TV and everyone, oh, we got to uphold the Constitution. Man, type in supreme law of the land in the treaty. What you'll find out is the treaty is the supreme law of the land. And it is
the Iroquois made it, right?
Yes. The Iroquois have the most numbers of the Nephilim Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline, but the Sioux, which is the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, have retained their star knowledge of information from star beings the most. And what's really fascinating with all of this is your listeners can go to Google and type in University of Ottawa and star knowledge. You'll find that our work with the Canadian government just went live, and our star knowledge, which is the knowledge of light and sound and how it creates physical reality and cosmic harmonious frequencies that aligns oneself with creation energy, which is 432, which I know you know, which is cool. That star knowledge is now being taught in the University of Ottawa. We just did a show that's being shown by the Canadian Public Corporation, which is kind of like their PBS, but even bigger. And at every equinox and solstice, they're going to be having events. And they're really interested because just recently I began work with the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull, taking it to ancient sites. And I just took it to the Unknown Hall of Records site in Eastlake, and
wow,
yeah, that was a trip.
One of the Hall of Records is in Eastlake, Ohio.
Yes, and it's huge. And some of the artifacts that were already removed out of it, I was contacted by a guy from the Smithsonian, and he said, we've seen that you've tracked the mound builders into Eastlake, Ohio, but are you aware that there's still there's an ancient earthwork that's still standing there? And I was raised in this town. I'm like, no one knows it's there. So he told me where to go and find it. Sure enough, it's there, and it takes over a mile to walk around it. And he said in the 1970s, Smithsonian did a small excavation, and some of the artifacts that were removed from that mound are in the Eastlake Indian Museum, which is a small little museum in the back of the strip mall. And so sure enough, I went there, and these artifacts, what it truly is the Morning Star, which back in Sumer, Enki has its sphere, and the Morning Star is like a compass, a four-pointed star. And in the Native American Indians, a lot of the chiefs, you'll see that they have that Morning Star symbol on their headdress. But for the Mayans, they called it the Lamat, and it more looks like the Templar cross, which makes sense. So that's what I'm involved right now, is a documentary called Path of the Morning Star. And what you need to know is the Morning Star, people will say it's Venus because it's the first celestial light that passes the horizon. But Chief Golden Light Eagle said, no, actually, that's a planet. It's not a star. It's our star, which brings light into the day. But it's truly metaphorical that it's the first ray of light into the darkness. We just went through this time period of a dark age, and now it's prophesied that we go into the age of Aquarius and it's be a golden age. Well, they're looking for the first ray of light that breaks into the darkness. And that's what we're doing. Truly
that's such a beautiful message.
Well, thanks. We've all been doing this for a very long time, and it's nice to see it come into fruition finally after thousands and thousands and thousands of years. That's what, all of us have lived many reincarnational lives and had many names. I like to say, I've had so many names that no name can contain me. What I am is nameless, but I'm not voiceless. There's a voice behind the name. But I've often said, sometime if you found yourself floating in space and all of a sudden Creator just appeared before you, said, "What's your name?" Like, No, it's not going to know you as Mike. But names, especially with, I'm this or I'm that, it can be very distracting because truly you find out now is your moment of power, right now. If you pull yourself out thinking about the past, or you pull yourself out looking towards the future, you missed your moment of power. Right now is the only time you can decide and change anything. Or especially, I look at phones, man. If you're stuck in your phone, you've missed your moment of power. Extraterrestrial being could show up right in front of you, but you're on TikTok. You know what I mean? We need to learn how to tune into the moment, and that's music, man. Music is the best way to train yourself about the moment because, Eric Clapton said the best way to become a great musician is learn how to listen to your bandmates. So you're all in that same moment.
I knew that definitely with my band, by the way, the Siren, or the band that I'm in. I'm a guitarist for. We were actually doing really well before the whole COVID thing happened, but man, we were touring all over, and that was always a thing for me. For some reason with music, I had issues with timing, and I realized it was like I always wanted to like jump ahead, and I really had to like feel into the present. So I really feel what you're saying with that. Music's definitely a great teacher.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, because if you pull yourself out backwards, forwards, and don't keep in the moment, you will just keep circling. And because if you don't take control of the manifestation, it will come anyhow, but it'll stem from the mass consciousness. And man, if it's good and peace, love, and good happiness stuff, then have at it, but you need to train yourself. If it's fear or doubt, you got to train yourself to look for something else. What else is available?
Definitely. I wanted to ask you earlier, your connection with the Native Americans. I don't think we really brought that up. You're part Native American yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, Seneca, of the Iroquois. And that's weird because I never knew my heritage growing up because I was adopted. And because of the History Channel show, the Harvard professor said, if you can contact your biological parents, you probably should, to see if this blood anomaly is something in your genetics or whatever. So that's when I met my birth mother for the first time and my two half sisters, found out about my Native American Indian heritage, and found out that Eric Clapton is my biological father. How about that? I don't know if we talked about that, but
wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, I'm like, what? She's like, are you sitting down? And
have you ever met him? Or
no. People ask me all the time, have you reached out to him? I'm like, man, I have about as much idea how to contact Eric Clapton as you do, but I know he was at the hospital when I was born with the other members of Cream, and Phil Collins was there. Crazy shit, but
that's pretty incredible.
Well, I've known for 12 years that Eric Clapton's my birth father, but I know what it sounds like. It's like, oh, you met the Anunnaki and now Eric Clapton's his father. Yeah. But it is what it is. And time's getting short. We're all getting older. And I'm just going to go public with it. I don't want anything from him. I've already got it made. I don't need anything from him. I'd like to meet him and just meet the man and jam,
Were you into playing guitar and everything before you found this out, or?
Oh yeah, I'd already won the Steve Vai Ibanez Guitar Challenge. Music has been my love of my life for my whole life, and didn't even know about the Eric Clapton connection. But I'll tell you, and when I was playing in a lot of classic rock bands, the first thing I'll do is I'll listen to a song, but I don't even have a guitar on. I just turn my ears on, and I listen. And we're going to do Crossroads. So I'm listening to it, no guitar, and I'm going, oh, fuck this. Excuse my language. I don't know if I can swear. But I'm never going to be able to play this song. It's just too difficult. I'm like, well, I might as well try. So I grabbed my guitar, and within 2 times through, I had the whole song. was like, that's about the easiest thing I've ever tried. And I thought something was weird at that point. Like, how come? And we have very similar musical phrasing and musical intelligence, but also when I sing, we sound almost identical. So, yeah, I'd love to jam with them. I think, Spirit keeps telling me, you think we came this far to only come this far? I'm sure it will happen. Why not?
I'm sure it will. So what did you grow up with this tribe? Like, did you like go through the like did you grow up with their like culture and everything?
No, not at all. I didn't even know I was Native American Indian. What happened was after I met my biological parents, I found out about my heritage. And I just ended up speaking in Columbus at a conference called Angels and Aliens. And Chief Golden Light Eagle, who is the spiritual advisor and chief of the Dakota, and he's been on Ancient Aliens many times. He was the keynote speaker, and I had never met him before. And I'm walking down a hall, and he just looks at me and goes, Michael, I need the Nephilim ambassadors at the Star Knowledge conferences. I need your energy there. Will you come? I was like, what? Are you talking to me? And sure enough, I'm now a keynote speaker, and I speak on behalf of the Mound builders and the Atlantean bloodline. And it was weird because once I found out that I had Native American Indian heritage, I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool to be able to meet the chiefs and, the grandmothers and the elders and learn, what they knew. And then my next thought is like, here I am, like I might as well be white, you know what I mean? Like instant Indian. How the hell am I going to meet these chiefs and stuff? But when the Chief Golden Light Eagle brought me into the Star Knowledge family, he's got Clifford Mahooty, he's the Zuni elder.
I love Clifford Mahooty.
Yeah, he's cool. He was my roomie at one of these things. I got some funny stories.
I spent a lot of time at conferences with him and did little adventures on the side.
He's cool. One thing, he was my roommate, and he's like, what if I got to come back and I'm going to have like a whole harem of chicks with me? Like, just call me. I'll get out of here. That's man code. He's like, oh, man code. I love that. But the point was, I got to meet all these amazing Native American Indian elders and chiefs because of Chief Golden Light Eagle bringing me in as the mound builder, Seneca ambassador. And yeah.
I'm from the Midwest as well. I'm actually grew up in Illinois, so there was a lot of the mounds around where I'm from. I definitely spent a lot of time there. I always knew there's something to it that wasn't being told in our history books, and everything that's coming out right now with this very interesting what Graham Hancock is bringing out and your work, and it's like everyone's talking about the giant wars that happened in the Midwest and the ancient civilizations that were there. I mean, there's a pyramid. I didn't know this when I lived in Illinois. Like, no one knows this, but there's like a pyramid in southern Illinois that's the base of it is like bigger than the Pyramid of Giza, and it's just grown over with grass now because the sediment from years and years of probably the Great Flood and everything. So
Cahokia still has Monk's Mound is much bigger, the blueprint of it, than the pyramids in Egypt. But one thing that's going to be coming out into our reality is your listeners can look into the Michigan artifacts. There's these tablets that were thousands of them, not even I think it was 30,000 tablets were removed out of mounds in Michigan. And they show the story of, because truly what we're talking about is revealing the lost tribe of Israel. And what it is too is our bloodline is called haplogroup X2A. And 3% of the Native American Indians have haplogroup X2A. I'm haplogroup X2A. The numbers could be a lot higher because the simple fact that not a lot of Native American Indians have had their blood work done. But when you go back in time, where you find the largest concentration of haplogroup X2A is the tall giants that were removed out of these mound sites. So to me, this is a really interesting talking point. Well, if a few generations ago we had giant stature, but now they just made me more round. They shrunk us, you know what I mean? And they said, well, you need to not stand out as a sore thumb to guide this experiment. Because, you know, if there's a team bad cop that was seeing if they could get you to give your energy away to illusionary outside sources, there's also a team that's inspiring music and poetry and art and things that elevate the human spirit. These tablets tell the migration of this haplogroup X2A. But so as I said, Native American Indians, up 3% right now, they know have this bloodline, which was only found in 1997, I believe. It wasn't that long ago. But then go back in time, and haplogroup X2A was found in the tall skeletons, the giants that were removed out of these mounds. But if you keep going back in time, where you find the highest concentration of that bloodline is going to tell you where it came from. And it's truly the hills of Galilee. This is the Holy Grail, Sangreal bloodline that when we began being persecuted, and it's the Atlantean bloodline as well, which that's a whole other story. But so what's coming about is these Michigan artifacts are pretty much unknown to the world right now, and they tell a very biblical story. And so Chief Golden White Eagle and I have been talking about these, and he just went to her name is Grandmother Chandra, and she's like top of the rung seer, shaman, for medicine woman, I guess would be the best term. And he said, how come Michael and I are being really drawn to these Michigan artifacts right now? And she said, because it's you. This is your story reincarnationally.
Wow.
And, you know, there's the story of the two brothers, right? It's interesting now because, you know, obviously if the Nephilim Sangreal Holy Grail bloodline, that I'll tell you, first of all, the name Anunnaki means those of royal blood. I don't like the term royal, but it is what it is. I might as well just say Anunnaki blood. But the fleur de lis, you know, that symbol. I was just watching the Da Vinci Code, you know, Tom Hanks movie, the book, and he's saying how the fleur de lis means those of royal blood. I'm like, so the fleur de lis and the word Anunnaki are intertwined. And I know this is true because Star Laughing Fox, who was the lady who did the ceremony of my naming, she came up to me and she showed me she had a fleur de lis on her in her arm here. And she said, they want you to know, she pointed up, that everyone that is here is of the bloodline. She pointed down to the tattoo. And she said, it's so nice to have you back, Inky. She started crying and she walked away. I'm like, well, that's freaking weird.
Wow.
But a little bit later, I said, man, I want to see that tattoo, you know? So I walked up to her and I said, you know, can I see that tattoo again? She said, what tattoo? And yeah, that's it. I said, you just showed me a tattoo. And she said, Michael, I don't have a tattoo. And she said, it's really weird, though, because I plan on having that tattoo in the future. So it was probably about 2 years where I got to ask one of the grandmothers. And I said, I told her what I just told you. And she had the Star Knowledge book open, and she had it to a chapter called Future Sight, which is weird because she's like, what you're experiencing is future sight. And we don't know what to tell you because no one's experienced it before. You're one of the first. It's people say we have junk DNA. It's your junk DNA is being activated. And she goes, I have future sight as well, but I don't know when it's going to manifest into my real world. And that hit me too, because I would have never known that because it felt like normal everyday reality to me when she showed me the tattoo. It wasn't like I was channeling or anything else. It was just like me talking to someone. So if I wouldn't have went back and asked her to see that tattoo, I would have never even known something was up.
Wow. I feel like I've experienced that before too. I know it's like whenever I think about something that I'm trying to manifest, a lot of times something will come in like a clear visual and it ends up happening. But I always like wonder, is it like I can't tell if it's like me like putting the vibration out there for it, or it's already there and it's seeking me. You know what I mean? Like it's like a what came first, the chicken or the egg sort of thing.
Right on. I can tell you it gets a little weirder because, I got the chance to ask Chief Golden Light Eagle recently. Matter of fact, if you type in Chief Golden Light Eagle and Future Sight, there is a clip of him talking about Future Sight. He said Toth is actually the one that is in charge of administering Future Sight. And what he told me was every single one of us, they can let you see part of the future, but they won't go further than 1 year, and they can do it one time a year. And he said they will only do it 1 year because if they take you too far, this gets weird, but well, you might be dead. People around you might be dead, and it's very hard for the psyche to experience a timeline that you don't exist in. So they only do it at one year forward at a time. And for whatever reason, I guess that's up to them. But then there are those of us that you seem like you're one as well, that it starts to activate. And all of us these are other senses that are going to come online for all of us. But there's first waivers, So I still, sometimes it manifests differently. But before I won the Steve Vai guitar challenge, I had a vision and a very lucid dream, and in it he said welcome aboard, and he's doing a song called There's a Train That's Leaving. So this vision. And so the next day I'm like, man, I feel like there's some kind of weird synchronicity or something waiting for me. I said to myself, I'm like, wouldn't it be weird if he was working on a song called There's a Train That's Leaving? So I went to Vi.com, and the first thing I seen, it said enter the Steve Vai Ibanez Guitar Challenge. And the fur went up on the back of my neck. I knew I was going to win the contest. I had not even recorded a note. It had nothing to do with my guitar playing, I just met him in a vision, and he said, welcome aboard. So sure enough, I ended up winning that contest. So it was really weird getting flown to meet him, man. I felt like I was being flown to meet Lestat or something,
He's an alien too. I can feel that.
A lot. Yeah, he's from what I understand, some other countries in India view him as an ascended master.
Wow.
And I would say that's accurate.
I meant to ask you earlier about to do with the bloodlines. So my great grandma was from a Cherokee Indian reservation. All my family knew her as Cherokee, and when I did my great grandmother, and when I did a DNA test, it didn't show up at all in my DNA test. So I don't know what that's about.
It might be, you might be haplogroup X2A because first of all, you got to know Cherokee and Iroquois are the same blood, and so just like imagine if this Atlantean bloodline intermingled into the Chinese and kept that bloodline pretty pure. If you checked an individual for Chinese DNA, you're not going to find it because it's truly ancient Hebrew, actually. So the bloodline that's intertwined into the Native American Indians, the Cherokee and the Iroquois and the Dakota, if it's of that 3% haplogroup X DNA blood, it's not going to show up as Native American DNA because it's truly not.
What does this show up as? I'm curious. This is why I was asking.
It would be haplogroup X2A and that same bloodline as well. See, there's 3 breakups of Atlantis. 51,000 years ago, and then 27,000 years ago, which was the biblical flood deluge event. The Atlanteans at that time went to the right and into the Basque area and some European countries. And then 10,500 years ago, the last breakup, they went to the left for the first time and came up into the bottom of the native North America, the Mayans, and then into Crystal River, actually, which is right where me and Sarah are now. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a show on Amazon Prime, and they're tracking down the Mayan culture when they left the Yucatan. And at Crystal River, Florida, there's a Mayan mound complex, and it's multiple mounds, but they the show called Unexplained and Unexplored were like tracking down what happened to the Mayan elders, and they tracked them down to Crystal River, Florida, and said they found the astronomical alignments for like equinoxes and solstices and whatnot. But they said if this is truly a Mayan complex, there should be a Mayan step pyramid right along this axis. And that took them right out into Crystal River. But across the river was another landmass. And they put up a ground penetrating radar drone, and they found a Mayan step pyramid in Florida. And it's pretty big. It's about 76 feet long. And everything is telling me there's another ancient crystal skull. But boy,
Awesome.
we skipped right over working with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. That's supposedly the 13th crystal skull, and no one's really allowed to touch it. It's Chief Golden Light Eagle said it's over 200,000 years old, and it's a repository of information. Well, I sat down in front of it. This voice is like, "You got to touch your forehead to mine." I'm like, "This is awkward," Because Bill Hammond, the current keeper of the skull, doesn't let anyone touch it. I said, "Bill," "this is awkward, but it's something is communicating to me that it wants me to go forehead to forehead with it, third eye to third eye." He said, "Yes, I know, you have permission." And so I did, and what a trip. Just leave it at that. One thing, I opened my eyes when its eyeballs are right here. You know what I mean? I'm like using it as a pair of binoculars. I opened up my eyes, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen. It was like this beautiful crystalline world of light. And so what happened was it rose up in front of me, like in my third eye, and then rotated around and like superimposed itself over my own head. And things seem to be on a fast track, because that's what it's said to do. Is in the time that mankind is going to go from reality A to reality B, it's got the event strings to make it happen ripple free, if that makes sense. Is painless as possible, and where people just meet the right people. It'll be effortless. So what was happening is we took the skull to the East Lake Hall of Records mound site and did ceremony on the equinox. And right when I got home, I got a call from the producer for the Canadian Public Corporation telling me that our show just went live at the University of Ottawa, and it was a black tie event, and like 300 people were there, and tuxedos and whatnot, and it was happening simultaneously. And I didn't know this as when we were working with the skull. So it's pretty cool. I'm working with them right now to bring a team, including Bill Hammond and the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, to ancient sites all over the world and have it filmed and the ceremonies and whatnot.
Wow, that is really incredible. Have you taken it to any other sites already, or
Just
you're
it's like
just
right
planning?
now, it's in the Serpent Mound. It was supposed to be here at Crystal River, but at the last moment, Bill came down. It wasn't COVID, thank God, but he came down with the crud, and he couldn't make it. But we still, it's if the skull is going to a sacred site to unlock, its hidden history. It's nice to have it, but not necessary anymore because we're connected. So it goes where I go and vice versa. And Bill said that's what's happening when it will choose certain individuals to superimpose working with. And he said it's not downloading its contents because our heads would explode. It's just too much info. It's all not like there's 12 other crystal skulls, and those 12 hold the Akashic records for planet Earth. But there's one 13th crystal skull that goes galactic and takes the energy of this planet universal. And that's the 13th skull. So pretty much the 13th skull contains all of the information of the other 12, plus the galactic component that if it's activated, then it almost behind the scenes will event string, create coincidences and synchronicities to bring mankind into the golden age. So I'm excited because what's on the agenda is taking a team to St. Michael's ley line, St. Michael and Mary. That ley line runs through the UK, and it goes through Avebury and Stonehenge, and right where all those crop circles are showing up. So this is very interesting because one night, the Anunnaki had guided me into the significance of the 7-pointed star. And truly, if you take 4 octaves below 432, which is 27 hertz, and put it through a scientific device called a simoscope, which makes frequency visible, you'll see it creates a perfect 7-pointed star. So anytime you see a 7-pointed star, it's intertwined forever with the 432 math and physics. So this one night, the Anunnaki said, you need to divide a circle by 7. So I had to tell Sarah, I got to get up and do some math, honey. She's like, all right, you freak, go ahead. So I divided 360 by 7. And what you get is 51.428. And so what they showed me was picture a 7-pointed star. Actually, this one will probably be easier right now. By the way, see, I always put it in the wrong way. See how there's a 7-pointed star? And then see all those symbols around it?
The Greek lock key, is that what
that is called the Baktun, and it's a Mayan calendar long count that is 144,000 days, each one of those. And there's 14 Baktuns, but what they showed me, if you just go from one point to the next point of a 7-pointed star, they showed it to me in my third eye, and then I called it an Anunnaki astral highlighter, and they just went from one point to the next, and then they let the rest of the circle drop away. So you just had that arc, that curve. And they said this is the true Ark of the Covenant, and it'll lead mankind into a new form of unlimited free energy. And right when they showed me this and that arc, and what happened was, as they showed me the arc like this, another one floated up under it and matched it, which made an eyeball shape. It's hard to get it. Anyhow, it was an eye shape. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be weird? I wonder what a 7-pointed star created out of these Ark of the Covenants. And this appeared the next day, this was a crop circle. And you can see I'm trying to...
Where did that one appear?
In the UK, right next to... So what I found out, 51.428 is forever tied to a 7-pointed star, because 360 divided by 7 is 51.428. But what blew my mind is, guess what? The longitude line of St. Michael's ley line that runs through all those temples in Avebury, and it's 51.428 actual longitude line on this planet. No one knows this yet. So you got 7-pointed star crop circles that encode 51.428 along Earth's longitude line of 51.428 that runs through St. Michael and Mary's ley line. So the Anunnaki have told me that there's a story waiting for mankind, that just to start at one end or the other and visit all the Templar temples and ancient earthworks and mounds and pay attention to the story that's being communicated. They told me, well, what's interesting, I'm like, well, where does 51.428 run through America? The answer is it doesn't. It runs through Canada. So that's another thing that I'm working with the Canadian government of, bringing a team to all these. There's a lot of sacred sites along the 51.428 longitude. But then I got to share with you the most craziest synchronicity out of all of this. I meet Graham Hancock, and we're talking, and he tells me, if you take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, and then you take the length of it and multiply it by 43,200, 432, you get the actual dimensions of planet Earth, like perfectly. It's encoded into the dimensions in the layout. But then he had the side angle of the pyramid at 51.86.
Oh, wow.
And but then, that's when they thought the pyramid only had 4 sides, and they were 51.86 angle. But now they know only on 2 days of the year you can see it actually has 8 sides.
Yeah.
So right there, like, it should tell you, well, there's got to be more than one angle involved. And this voice is like, Michael, subtract your 51.428 from Graham Hancock's 51.86 of, the 4 sides of the pyramid. So I do, and I'll save you the suspense. It's 432. So imagine the engineering it would take that only 2 times in the year, the solstice, spring and fall, 2 times a year, you can see that it has 8 sides. And those 2 angles, when you subtract one from the other, is encoding 432. It's pretty incredible. Whoa.
432 is in everything here.
Yes,
Definitely.
indeed.
So AZIC9 here, thank you for the super sticker, by the way, says, so how can we harness energy in alignment of balancing the Earth's frequencies?
Well, what happened was Richard Hoagland had me on his radio show, and I was blown away because Richard was a hero of mine. And when I needed information in the past, Spirit had guided me to his work. That for people that don't know who Richard Hoagland is, he was Walter Cronkite's science advisor. He worked with NASA. And so he has me on his radio show, and he's like, Michael, we know your story sounds batshit crazy to a lot of people, but NASA has been working into how energy works multidimensionally, and he calls it hyperdimensional physics for a very long time. And they know that your numbers you're bringing to the table are right on the money. So he said, I want to arrange for NASA to look into, your work. This is the actual one, which I see. Yeah. Awesome.
I love this, by the way. I brought it so many places, like traveling around with me, and I feel like I'm looking at an eye when I look into it. Like I've done a lot of meditations, just like looking into the eye in the center and just kind of meditating on it, because I actually do open eye meditation classes here in LA. And so I was just kind of like looking at that as the eye and like meditating on it, and I've had some pretty wild experiences. It almost feels like a scrying class.
It's a miracle, because what you didn't know and I didn't know when you got that. And thank you, by the way. You can see your shaman spirit behind me on the wall, and it was a nice. Anyhow, I'm glad you have it. What I found out was NASA took the disc you have, but I sent them a 3-inch version. You got the 6-inch version. that what they did was they took California municipal tap water and they took 6 photographs at what's that called? Like control, untreated. And then they took a glass of that same water and put it on a disc. Then at 15 minutes, they took another 6 photographs. And at a half hour, they took another 6 photographs using a scientific GDV camera that can record the amount of photonic light within a droplet of water. And so what they found is at control, we've almost killed our municipal tap water by putting chlorine and fluoride and making it take right-hand turns and sending it through miles of pipe. It looked like a little tiny pinprick of light, just a little prick. That's all the energy that was left in that water. Then they took that glass of water, put it on this disc for 15 minutes. And look at this. I made the NASA's image into where it was a little tiny pinprick of light. This is after it's been introduced to 432. So I said, wait a minute. If there was no energy, but now there's energy, where is this extra energy coming from? And the biophysicist from NASA said, I asked her, is it our universe? Is it our sun? Is it our planets? And she said, no, it's coming from another dimension. And if you hold up your disc there in the middle, that's the first toroidal physics donut, like toroidal, the Thrive movie, they're always talking about, I can't even think about what it's called. But anyhow, she said that it's actually doing something that they've never seen before. And that is, they know you can restructure water by sending it through high magnetic fields or sending it through magnets. Even faith healers can go and heal water and bring energy back into it. But in all those instances, the periphery of the light pattern gets more diffuse and bigger and brighter. But for the first time, said the longer they left that cup of water on the 432 disc, it actually got more focused and smaller and brighter. She said it was, for the first time ever, it was turning the photonic energy within the droplet of water into a laser beam of energy. She said, imagine if you had a magnifying glass and as you, say you're trying to burn a leaf, and as you go up, the periphery gets smaller and smaller until it gets so intense it combusts. So what I'm getting at, first of all, I never had to ask myself, what's it mean to drink water that has energy from another dimension in it? This is from NASA, you know what I mean? Our cells get most of our chi and prana energy from water. And our bodies are 70 to 90% water. So imagine all of a sudden if your body has high octane fuel. By the way, what she told me to do, she said she didn't believe at 50 minutes, this is the biophysicist from NASA, she said at 50 minutes, she still didn't think it was done doing its thing. She said, I would recommend to you to take a glass of water in preferably glass that has no printing or no words on it. It's programming, just pure glass. And at the end, tonight, put that glass of water on your disc and let it sit overnight. And then in the morning, drink it. It's going to boost your immune system through the roof. And then when you use this water that's got this, it turns it into holy water. It's truly a miracle, because when you do agriculture with it and use it to water your garden, your plants grow at a much faster rate and they're impervious to drought and much larger yield. But the nutritional value of the fruit or vegetable goes through the roof, meaning they can look at how the nutritional content of a unit of any fruit or vegetable. And with non-GMO seeds and stuff, they're at about 4.5 out of 15. When you use this water, it jumps up to about 12. So every bite you take out of a tomato or a potato, you're going to get over twice the nutritional value. But it's truly a miracle. And man, this gets into a thing, but this isn't coincidence. I was told how to do a water blessing ceremony by some of the elders of the Native Americans, and I did it with the spring water that's here in Florida. And he said, truly, the mojo's in the image. The crystal will amplify it a little bit, and then it's wrapped in copper. That all works as well. By the way, if anyone wants to find out more about this technology, just go to my website. It's michaelleehill.net.
I left that also in the description and at the beginning of the chat for anyone that wants to see.
Very cool. So what they told me was once I did this water blessing ceremony, it's almost like they can control quantum entanglement and quantum entangle this image with the divine energetic signature of virgin water that has never been introduced to human thought forms. Because Dr. Amola shows water is recording everything, and there's a lot we can do to it that dims its shine. So when you have it right from the source and it's virgin water, they said that once I did this water blessing ceremony, they said that for a shaman or a medicine man, the only rule for it becoming a shamanic healing tool is it's got to be created by your own two hands. So Chief Golden Light Eagle said that, all of these springs that are coming up in Florida are Fountain of Youth springs. They all hit the same source. And he said he was brought to the first one that was brought up by Ea, by the way. Isn't that odd? He said he went to the bottom of Florida to bring fresh drinking water to White Buffalo Calf Woman. And so this first Fountain of Youth water, that spring is in, I'm only the third person on the planet that knows where it's at, so I don't want to really spill the beans, but he said he got to go there himself, and it's not public, and the person that owns the land that it's on is a Iroquois chief. And he said when he got there, he's like, there's only 50 feet of earth that separated that fresh spring from the ocean. He's like, that's odd. How the hell is that 50 foot of dirt holding back an ocean? But he said it did. But they weren't allowed to take any water from it. They could bathe their shamanic healing tools, feathers, shakers, rattles, and then the chiefs and elders could take those healing tools back to their tribes, and that would bring out the attributes of holy water, of Fountain of Youth water to their tribes. But they said, Michael, this truly, this is my guitar. I played it into existence. It's made by my own two hands. This is my shamanic healing instrument, and I can reach the whole planet with this, whereas they were limited in whoever they could fan down with a feather. This can make it worldwide. But the thing is, they said anything that contains this image, once I did the water blessing ceremony, both forwards and backwards in time, meaning even though I didn't do the water blessing ceremony until after you received your disc, it's always been transmitting those healing frequencies. And but that's why too, they're telling me anything that contains this image, this has never been seen by mankind before. This is actually the 432 frequency being shown by Mother Nature. This isn't computer generated. So obviously anything that contains the image, well, I can put it on a t-shirt, I can put it on a coaster, I can put it on a
guitar picks for me.
Yes,
Those
yes.
were amazing.
But, this is one of the coolest things. They said, this is a pendant that has both color variations. What's going on with this? So oh, sorry. You can see this one is, oh my God. This is everywhere I move, it's the wrong direction. See how this is red to purple and all the
Yeah.
colors of the rainbow? But this one's purple to red. And what I
Oh,
found from one of the elders is the Native American Indians believe that once once you went through your becoming rainbow, that all your chakras flip. So instead of red,
really?
it's purple in the root, and vice versa. So I look at these two as tools of maybe push pull. But yeah, so I've started. What they told me was this: not only will it restructure water, which I've seen a lot of them, they'll take a glass of water and put this right under it, for a couple seconds, because it only takes a couple seconds to bring the energetic level back. But then the more you keep it there, the more focused and more powerful it becomes. But guess what? We're made of water. So when you wear it, it's supercharging your body and the water within your body. But I said, guess what, man? It's not just going inward. It's a transmitter. And wherever it's going on the planet, it's going planet wide. And it's increasing its environment, vibratory frequency, wherever it goes. So it feels good to find, I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? I'm proud of the technology. This is a lot of work. It's quartz crystal. The scientist is the ones that did the imaging, and it's got a copper wrap that keeps the energy within it. And as long as you take care of it, it'll last forever. So, man, this is a very inexpensive way to make your water very, very healing.
Definitely.
Or it's just good weed.
I love bringing this around with me, and it was a great trade we did. I actually this for the audience here, the spear I traded him for these it was actually the spearhead I put on it. The stone I put on the spearhead was actually found, or I found it near the base of the Pyramid of Giza.
Oh,
So
wow.
there was two of them. You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Wait, what? You didn't know that?
Let me grab it.
Oh my god, I didn't tell you?
Mm-mm.
I could have sworn I told you that.
So this?
You didn't know that?
I had
Dude,
no
no.
clue.
So
That?
I made two spears like that. That stone, and then I found two stones that were kind of pointed like that. So I made two. And it has sand from the Pyramid of Giza down the inside along with
Oh,
quartz and
wow.
Chris, you didn't know this? I could
No.
have sworn I told you. I can't believe I didn't tell. No, that's actually one of the most special spears I've ever made. Like a bunch of people were like, "Why did you give that away?" But I actually gave one to you, and then the other pair, the matching one, was to Ken Johnston because I had just gotten back from Egypt a little before that, so that was from my Egypt collection. So yeah, so
Well, it's
you
very,
and Ken Johnston, the astronaut, have matching
oh,
spirit. It's kind of like the Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort, like dueling. What's the word? Like matching cores, kind of idea.
well, you can see how revered it is. These are all really sacred objects to me. I've began using shakers and rattles, Native American Indian, and they're the real McCoy. And so these are my most special things. Check this out. I can't get it off. If I could get it off, I'd show you. That's a buffalo bone. That's a rattle that I
Oh,
got.
I would love to hear it. You can't get it off?
Nah, hang on.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
It is so hot in here, baby. So, you see, it's so you can get them, going. But yeah. So no, I had no clue that's got the Giza connection. That's very cool.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was pretty close to it. I think it was at a pyramid like right near there, right next to the Pyramid of Giza. I was just looking on the ground and I found two. It was on the Giza Plateau area. I found two like kind of longer pointy stones and I was like, wow, normally I just put like, some sort of like quartz crystal at the end, but I like saved those. I'm not really sure what sort of stone it is, but yeah, it was weird. They were just kind of like long, like kind of almost knife-shaped stones, it seemed to me. Cool. So I just put those on the end, and yeah. So that's definitely probably one of the most interesting ones I've ever made. That's for sure. So yeah.
Well, it's in good hands.
Definitely. I'm glad you got that one. So I wanted to get into our orb experiences, but we're almost at 2 hours here. I mean, I feel like that'll be like a whole hour talk on its own, probably.
Yeah, not only that, I was contacted by the Pentagon secret UFO program that funneled $22 million to Bigelow Aerospace. And they contacted me in 2011 about these orbs. So I learned a lot from the investigator. So maybe we should do a part 2 here.
Yeah, we should do a special orb episode and then talk about research. What's interesting with that, I want to mention earlier when we were talking about Clifford Mahooty. So my experience was with a lime green orb that came to me in Joshua Tree one time. And I noticed it had come to me in visions and like dreams before it actually happened. And Clifford Mahooty, I saw his presentation one day and he's talking about this lime green orb. And I was like, yo, what is this? Can you tell me like what this is? And he said it related to Archangel Raphael. So yeah, so that's something me and him have in common. Definitely. So yeah, we should definitely do an orb episode. I don't know. Let me know when you would be free to do that.
Right on. Yeah,
that'd be really cool. Yeah.
That's the fun stuff.
Definitely. This has been a great talk. And, we're talking about synchronicities throughout this. And actually, a lot of things you have said here are kind of synchronicities for me of things that have been on my mind a lot lately. And you kind of actually filled in some things I've been thinking about. So you definitely brought in some synchronicities for me. So is there any final words you would like to say to the audience here to wrap this up?
Yeah, if you're not having fun, stop it. Yeah. Truly, life's short, man. They say, worry. Worrying's like praying for what you don't want. Find something higher, find something better, find something that enlightens your soul, and then don't let go.
Thank you for that. That's actually something I always like to say a lot. Someone told me a long time ago, if you aren't doing what's right for you, you're not doing what's right for anyone else. And I always like to keep that in mind. I just love that.
Yeah, never take advice from miserable people, Shine, enjoy your life, and then what you do will make a difference. Because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, no one's gonna, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, our words are like butter here because it's been like 2 hours. But so before I close here, I just want to remind everyone again, there's about 7 spirits left in my Pantheon collection. This is one of them. I love this. This is like a little alien one. And everything we were talking about crop circles in the show. I actually paint all my spirits with crop circles that have been found around the world. They're all filled with copper crystals. Quartz crystals, magnets, sand I collect from sacred places around the world, and they're all charged with quantum touch energy, and they're all kind of charged onto a collective. So every new one I make, I add to the collective, and it grows the entire collective. Every healer that has one charges the whole collective and makes the collective stronger. And I probably made hundreds at this point. They all come with a free scroll that talks about what it means to have one. It's kind of a secret until you get it to find out what it actually says. You don't have one of these, Michael. I need to send you one because I started doing this later. So I'll send you one.
That'd be cool.
Definitely. All right, everyone. Oh, and by the way, that was shamanspears.com. And make sure you check out Michael's discs. They are at
michaelleehill.net.
Let me pull that up right here. I meant to do that at the beginning of the show. Right here, michaelleehill.net. And he has all these other really awesome products as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here with us, Michael. I had a really great experience, and until next time, everyone. Yes, definitely with you as well. All right. So I'm not sure what my next show is going to be, everyone, but I'm definitely looking forward to this Orbs Part 2 episode. So stay tuned. I should have another episode coming out next week, and the studio is coming together. So see you all next time on Apollo's Odyssey. Over and out.
Peace.